All right. I think it should be rocking soon. It's showing up. It says I'm live. Still saying offline. Come on. All right. Killer. I am rocking. Let me send off this message. And let's fucking go. All right. That is where we want to be starting. Great. So, I figured I would start talking basically where I left off last time. So we spent, oh, good grief. Is that the right size? Yeah, that's the right size. No, that's not the right size. That is, maybe that is. Top C drawing. Let me get rid of that. Yup. Let me paste that. Put that underneath. And then, okay, so this is the drawing we wound up making last week. We spent some time listening to two essays. One of them by Frank Olavsky about the absurdity of the data to ink ratio. And then we also listened to this critical study of silence in music theory and semiotics, and we touched on a bunch of other fun stuff. That's all recorded, and there's a notebook available. It is over on my GitHub. I figure I will go to these so I can remember to timestamp them later. And what I guess is interesting to look at from the aggregate now. And this is mostly for people who would write notebooks. I've written a lot, a shameful number of them. But what I have found, especially now that I struggle to stay connected with communities and I'm doing a lot of work alone, I realized that the notebook is like super duper good at capturing all of the work, but it still misses stuff. And what's interesting is how a stream becomes a notebook. Like last time I did a stream on Twitch, I exported to YouTube, I gave it a listen. I did some time stamping. And while that time stamping's going on, I make these notebooks that are basically notes of it, so that there's some links left over. So anyway, and then embed the the video in here, some images, and then even some post-mortem for myself. So it's really fascinating to me, again, how I've got this notebook now and it's the start of my next stream. I really think that there's something strong about the video part of the notebook that hasn't really been well, actually it has been explored, it just hasn't been revisited. I think one of the best examples of Oriole Jupiter Day Atlanta. I hosted a conference in Atlanta a long time ago. Let's see, Jupiter Day Atlanta. Let's do that and search on GitHub. It would have been the first one here. Man, I've made so many GitHub organizations over the years. Let's see. Wondering if. Oh man, that was uh, a wonderful talk by Stephen Welch. I forgot about that. Yeah, here's Oriole. So Oriole was presented by Paco Nathan, who's definitely doing some cool stuff because it just seems like everything he touches is cool. But the thing that he presented in 2016 were these notebooks by like really notable folks made by O'Reilly that were like synced up to the video. It was using this like OG JS tool called Popcorn JS or something like that. But it's really interesting. I thought these videos were super engaging. They actually had compute embedded in the page. So it's interesting to think about how we now actually have like more standards and more means to execute these things. And it gets to one of my working hypotheses that video is the pinnacle of accessibility. And what I mean by that is there are several channels in the captioning channels that offer plain text representations of a video. It's like multi-dimensional in a way that other things aren't. So for me, it's almost a accessibility challenge to go and produce a video and then consider what its accessibility is. And I think that we're actually at a time where there's more web standards and more implementations. And I really like the one thing that's just giving me a lot of hope for the future is the ESM module imports. It really makes playing around in notebooks super fun. So I really encourage any notebook users to experiment with video as either, experiment with the notebook as either a means of creation that you record or a recording after the fact. If you start to figure out how to do both, you have something. I've struggled with going from nothing to something. It's taking me a long time to be able to do that. And I think the last live stream was relatively successful. And to the point where I'm confident enough I can do these drawings in that time and put this content together. But what was an experiment for me was I really wanted to be able to draw and study at the same time. And I want to expose people to screen readers. I really don't think that screen readers are just for blind and low vision people, and they definitely are not, but there's a misconception. I think that there's something very interesting to be explored because in the last stream, we spent some time talking about Derrida's exhibition at the Louvre. Darn it, I put a link to that in the YouTube video. I forgot the name here. No, not The Silence of the Frames. Memoirs of the Blind. So Memoirs of the Blind was this effort to look at the work around the work of the visual. So that's kind of why I'm interested in recording my process for doing this, and also like giving the opportunity to expose people to ways the screen reader might be practical for, say, study, or also just, maybe for some kind of pacing of your own. Yeah, I was very happy with the screen reader. The speed that I had it at was 55%, which was a really nice speed to draw at, especially with the inks. Inks, you have to go slower. If I was using a marker, I could probably feel more comfortable at a 60 or 65. But then the trouble is that when you go and try and listen to this sped up, because a lot of the visuals look better sped up. This calligraphy is one of those things that does not look better slowed down, unless it's like zoomed in on the bristles or something. Otherwise, does not look better zoomed in or slowed down. So we want to speed it up, but we can't speed it up so that the screen reader sounds like Chip and Dale to people who've never heard it. We just want people to, I just really am trying to get folks to acknowledge the audible impact of their work, and the operable impact of their work. And we're going to get into all that stuff when we start talking today. But yeah, the major outcome of it was this piece of calligraphy here, which has led me to, play around in some like fun ways here. I could actually take the physical drawing and line it up with the digital, I could even go and just start putting other drawings and textures underneath of it. And there's sort of a interesting, blending of all of these drawings sort of happening. But thought I'd go through some of these just to kind of get them off my mind here. Zoom out a little bit on this. Actually, let's swap over here and let's get into drawing territory. So this was a throwaway that I started just flicking ink onto, and I don't know, I just thought it was really actually delightful because I started like looking at the ink, and then I started realizing, oh, there's actually some decent stuff behind this. And what's behind this is something that I've been thinking about for a while, which is accessible data visualization. When you think about this reference to Memoirs of the Blind, and you revisit our discussion about the role of blindness in making art, in the act of making art, and how much of it is from memory, you start to realize that retrofitting what things sound and feel like from the visual is an ill-posed problem. Underlying a what we learned is that a visualization has a frame. It's this liminal space that we don't notice exists, but there's a frame. And I've spent a lot of time working with data, so I think it's data frames. And I don't think this name is fortuitous, if not just semiotically reasonable. So what I started to realize is that a visualization, or a table's a visualization. That's easy. The columns are axes and the rows are axes. And these are like implicit things that we've always had. Now, the visual of the table is a data visualization. Yeah, maybe it doesn't give you all of the dense information that you desire, but what is the difference between a table visualization and a canonical data visualization is that values are absolutely positioned in a data visualization and values are relatively positioned in a table. So if we know the extent of our values and our axes, it should be possible to go and make a visualization from any table using CSS, using CSS transforms, and we'll find how this relates to proper accessible data visualization design. In fact, I think that there's sort of a singularity in some of the principles we'll talk about. But yeah, so dataink, and then I feel like this might have actually been like the paper I had over here, and I was just like flicking ink while I was working on it. So in some way or another, this is like the negative space of the work. It's funny. I guess I'm like happy that I'm doing this. It's good to get my thoughts out, especially like as I need them. Here's another, so actually I should probably like keep this drawing here because there's sort of, you can start to see how over a collection of these drawings, they're not very different, but there's experimentation in technique and in medium, and all of this stuff lets me spend a lot of nice time with my thoughts, and it's really fun to, I think it's really fun to mash these things up here. Actually, so I'm gonna just take this off real fast and kind of make this bigger, and then fade it back over. But yeah, it's super fun, especially when they start moving around and the edges start brushing against each other. There's so much layering, but you know, this is kind of how the ideas work. So yeah, this is probably a notable drawing to at least get some thoughts out on. So my primary interest is in making sure that interactive computing is accessible. And one of the things about interactive computing is state is changing a lot, and it's really important that notifications are managed. So like if you got a big component system thing and everything's managing its own notifications, it's going to be really hard to control. And I feel like there is something analogous to like a logger in a conventional application, or even the console logger in the developer tools, where we can kind of have this thing that you go and log something, and when you log it, it goes and makes an element. It does the aria live stuff. It sets up some time delays, so on and so forth. And you kind of have this one like visual logger. It needs to be on the page. Like that's basically the deal with accessibility. It needs to be on the page, and it cannot be hidden or behind a display. We can do visually hidden. So if we did not want to see this, it would have to be visually hidden. That means you could still get to it with keyboard navigation, but visually it would not appear. But it must appear in the DOM somewhere. Otherwise, these ARIA Live notifications don't work. I think this is an interesting problem. It's really challenging because it requires heuristics, because there's no way to know if a screen reader did anything inside of the browser. So I don't know if anybody ever sees this and they're like, "That's interesting. Let's talk." So yeah, notifications. Import MB. Hopefully we have a release soon. I just really like the stickers in this one. But yeah, add layers, add texture. It's fun. So great. That brings us to today. And get to work. So my plan is to start digging into web content accessibility guidelines. And then we want drawing, and we want this, and we want to fade over. And let's see, I probably need to keep a doodle page to make sure. What's this? Oh yeah, yes. I've become very obsessed with this concept of the frame. It's written on just about anyway. I just need junk paper, so this is fine, because I have way too many pens at this point, and I don't know what color anything is. I'd really like to have say a dark black and a red. So we got black and a red here. I buy these pens, and then I misplace them so much that I have like far too large of a collection of them. But we will kick off in just. Oh wow! Look at this. What color are you? Oh, you're good red. Black and red looks so good. I mean, I always think of the best Barbara Kruger. She's been doing black and red for so long. So good. That's a good brush. And that's a good brush. I think one of the things that'll like show over time in these streams is that like so much of how I wind up drawing letters is determined by the actual pen I wind up writing with. They all have like different speeds and textures and like ideal angles and stuff like that. I don't know. It's like every pen has its own API or something like that. And you kind of have to, learn to work within it, right? Like these pens are interesting because it's almost like there's a 5 millimeter API and then the narrow edge API. And you can even learn to make some like graceful transitions between them. But that all takes time, just like programming practice and accessibility. Shit, accessibility is so hard to learn. It's so boring too. It's just like chewing saltines for a career, with very little water, constantly parched. But at the same time too, these standards and documents are really well thought out. They're hard to understand. They're hard to wield. So let's try and figure that out a little bit today. So I am going to just like get started. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at the web content accessibility guide intro to web content accessibility guidelines. This is 2.2 or 2.1. 2.2 is out now. Not much of this is all that different. The principles have basically been the same since the early versions of this. So yeah, let's get to
voiceover on Firefox. Skip to content. Introduction to understanding the four principles of accessibility. Heading level 2. The guidelines and success criteria are organized around the following four principles, which lay the foundation necessary for anyone to access and use web content. Anyone who wants to use the web must have content that is 1. List start. Perceivable. Information and user interface components must be presentable to users in ways they can perceive. Bullet. List start. This means that users must be able to perceive the information being presented. It can't be invisible to all of their senses. List end. 2. Operable. User interface components and navigation must be operable. Bullet. List start. This means that users must be able to operate the interface. The interface cannot require interaction that a user cannot perform. List end. 3. Understandable. Information and the operation of user interface must be understandable. Bullet. List start. This means that users must be able to understand the information as well as the operation of the user interface. The content or operation cannot be beyond their understanding. List end. 4. Robust. Content must be robust enough that it can be interpreted reliably by a wide variety of user agents, including assistive technologies. Bullet. List start. This means that users must be able to access the content as technologies advance. As technologies and user agents evolve, the content should remain accessible. List end. If any of these are not true, users with disabilities will not be able to use the web. Under each of the principles are guidelines and success criteria that help to address these principles for people with disabilities. There are many general usability guidelines that make content more usable by all people, including those with disabilities. However, in WCAG 2.1, we only include those guidelines that address problems particular to people with disabilities. This includes issues that block access or interfere with access to the web more severely for people with disabilities. Layers of guidance. Heading level 2. The guidelines. Heading level 3. Under each principle there is a list of guidelines that address the principle. There are a total of 13 guidelines. A convenient list of just the guidelines can be found in the WCAG 2.1 table of contents. Link. One of the key of...
Okay. So this is what the standards body provides. And they're very, very limited by language. So these documents tend to be hard to understand because much more color could bring ambiguity, and ambiguity doesn't work for these documents. So when people see web content accessibility guidelines, their criteria for accessibility, you can test them. And basically, if you've done it right, you've built the floor. So there's more to it, right? Like, especially when it comes to data visualization. A lot of the data visualization tools that we have come like so much later technology-wise than some of the original intents and needs for disabled people, which is like they need to be able to bank, they need to be able to schedule things, they need to be able to go to the doctor. All of this stuff needs to be accessible because, you know, it's a right. But at the same time too, like scientific technology, or actually, no, we're not gonna go there yet. These standards take so much time to get to that it's really hard for data visualization to keep up. And there are a secondary set of principles that I like to, or actually that I would actually, at this point, I think it's fair to say special interest in the concept, because I think there's something really righteous in the idea of sort of synthesizing this idea, the frame that I keep touching on, and data visualization, and the consequence of that. Operable. Man, the probability of me misspelling stuff here is really high. I just want to, before I say anything, boop. Okay, operable. Okay. I think things are getting blocked here. I gotta probably move over a smidge, make some more room. There we go. Operable. Am I spelling this? You start to write these things so slowly that you're not sure sometimes you're like, does
active.
that word
Firefox voiceover off.
Does that word really look that weird? So they said there was something like there's like a table of contents or something. Oh no, where was it? So perceivable, didn't mess that one up. Okay, operable looks normal. Let's see if understandable even fits. Okay, so let's dive into, let's finish the L. Because once I digress enough, my hand's not the same. And then it'll look sort of disjointed, I suppose. I need to clean up my workspace. I like mess. I don't really actually like clean. I'm sort of inspired by mess and ink dots. I just sort of get mesmerized by it. It's like, I hope you guys had fun, like flying through the air on your way to make these messes. But anyway, so perceivable, operable, and I will start understandable after pull up chartability. So this is the GitHub for chartability.
Voiceover on chartability, an inclusive data experience toolkit. Chartability, folders and folders, history, repository files, chartability, heading level 1. Chartability, heading level 1, permalink, chartability, link. Chartability is a set of heuristics, testable questions, for ensuring that data visualizations, systems, and interfaces are accessible. Chartability is organized into principles with testable criteria and focused on creating an outcome that is an inclusive data experience for people with disabilities. To learn more about chartability, check out the official chartability website, link. This repository is intended to represent, period. Chartability website, link. Chartability website, link. Chartability is, what is chartability? Heading level 2, main, landmark. Chartability is a set of heuristics, testable questions, for ensuring that data visualizations, systems, and interfaces are accessible. Chartability is organized into principles with testable criteria and focused on creating an outcome that is an inclusive data experience for people with disabilities. Chartability can help you find accessibility barriers in data visualizations. Heading level 3, being able to recognize which parts of a data visualization produce barriers for people with disabilities can be tough. But Chartability has compiled existing standards, research, and community best practices into a comprehensive set of things to look out for. Ideally, it can help folks who create visualizations really think deeply about accessibility when they design. A dropper tool is testing the contrast of a chart, and then a new chart is shown with borders that pass contrast requirements. Image. An example showing a perceivable test. A low contrast chart, left, is being compared to a higher contrast version of itself, right. A dropper tool is used alongside a contrast calculator. showing that the chart on the left doesn't have enough contrast. What is accessibility? Heading Level 3. Accessibility, also sometimes abbreviated as A11Y, is the practice of ensuring that as many people as possible can use, understand, and have access to a technology, infrastructure, tool, product, or service. What is data visualization? Heading Level 3. Data visualization, also sometimes abbreviated as data vis or datavis, is presenting data in a structured, symbolic way. The structure and semantics go beyond the visual, however, so we prefer to call these data experiences. With the massive rise in data-driven journalism, the ease and availability of charting and analytical solutions, and data's near ubiquitous appearance in public life, more thorough and robust accessibility considerations are overdue. Separator, dimmed. Chartability choice principles. Heading Level 3. Chartability is organized into 7 principles. 4 common to the accessibility space: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, POUR, plus 3 more that extend from robust, compromising, assistive, flexible, CAF. These 7 principles are used to focus explicitly on inclusive data experiences and the specific considerations produced by these challenging environments. Why use chartability? Heading Level 3. Chartability.
So this is why we're here. Chartability adds and extends the POUR principles. And they hinge off of robust. What the fuck does that mean? Well, what that means is that robust is just kind of like, hey, you using standards, bro? And then if you're not, then they're like, well, you ain't robust. And then it's like, but bro, I came up with this like really complicated solution. And then dude's like, but can they touch it with a keyboard?
Screen dimmed.
No, because you didn't make it a button. You just made this button a div. So,
What is data visualization? Heading
don't do
chartability
crime.
helps the design of data. Voiceover off.
But it's hard to, so like the robust thing is just kind of saying, hey, when we're making, so there's this thing where it's where we find that like digital accessibility is about making things accessible to as many people as possible. But that's the outcome. The design space, the input of the design space is not accessibility per se. We're measuring accessibility on the outcome. So to me, one of the most confusing aspects of accessibility is the disconnect between testing the heuristics and how do you actually do that with practice and study and confidence. So I think that like the point that the extension that I'm drawing from chartability is that if a document has a data visualization in it, then that entire document, the thing around the visualization, is the frame, which is also part of the visualization. Which means that if you have a visualization, you need to be applying all of these things everywhere. Like, it lets you start to think about having consistent color in your paragraphs across your visualizations and your tables, similar text styles, and even thinking about it like as a typography problem. So I consider these POUR principles the first principles, and then the CAF principles the second principles. Let's keep listening. This document's kind of written similar to some the standards documents and the way that the tests are, because it actually is like really close to the standards. But again, this is how to test the outcome. I really want to talk about how to design the input of the thing. Let's cruise.
Voiceover on. Firefox. Secure connection. Button. App switcher. Heading not found. Phone. Close phone. Voiceover on. Firefox. Secure connection. Button.
Oops.
Address bar. This repository is intended to represent a basic document form of the Chartability Audit Workbook and the single source of truth for the latest version of the workbook. Issues and README. The Chartability Workbook. The Chartability Workbook. Heading Level 2. Permalink. The Chartability Workbook. Link. This workbook is intended to serve as a lightweight, high-level audit for catching data experience design failures related to accessibility. For more on Chartability, see our homepage, https://chartabilityphysstudio/ link. This workbook may be downloaded as a standalone Microsoft Word document, link. If you would like an editable file format, this is useful when keeping a record of evaluations. A data experience, DX could refer to a data visualization such as a chart, graph, or plot, a bespoke, highly customized graphic based on data, a model, or an algorithm, or a data-driven interface or system. If a human has an experience with data using any of their senses, then it counts as a data experience. We intentionally use an inclusive term. Method. Heading Level 3. Permalink. Method. Link. This workbook organizes tests into 7 categories, 4 of which are based on broad accessibility principles: perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust, POUR. The last 3 extend robust, compromising, assistive, and flexible, CAF. An auditor should proceed through each test and determine whether the content fails or succeeds using techniques provided or their own methodology. The auditor should assume failure when tests are inconclusive and, if early in the design process, a proven pass to a future consideration has not yet been demonstrated. Failures. Heading Level 3. Permalink. Failures. Link. Unlike a compliance audit, which determines adherence to regulatory guidelines, Chartability is meant to identify design failures. Generally, Chartability approaches accessibility as a scale rather than a state. How accessible a DX is determined by how few failures it contains. It should be assumed that even the absolute best DX may contain several failures, even after remediation. Note that Chartability should never be used in place of a compliance audit but always in tandem with it. Chartability's insistence on a scale, instead of a state, of accessibility requires that designers and creators consider their choices carefully. They must be willing to argue that lack of scope, time, or research or perhaps a unique consideration led to a given failure. No failure should be left unconsidered. An important note about language. Chartability's tests are framed in negative language, like target pointer interaction size is too small. This is intentional. Chartability is not meant to be used to pass accessibility requirements. You cannot pass Chartability 100%. Rather, Chartability is simply framed as a tool that helps people catch known barriers, or failures. It is possible to have 0 failures in Chartability but still have accessibility issues. This is because the work of accessibility never ends. Outcomes. Heading Level 3. Permalink. Outcomes. Link. Chartability is a set of heuristic tests that not only highlights failures for remediation, but also encourages healthy design critique and critical design discourse related to accessibility. Because excellence in accessibility is never a finished state, the outcome of a Chartability audit is less about arriving at accessibility and more about working towards an accessible experience. A good audit is not about measuring success. A good audit finds evidence of risk and failure. What are critical heuristics? Heading Level 3. Permalink. What are critical heuristics? Link. Some tests are considered critical by members of the community because they are prohibitively expensive to fix, common, produces significant barriers, and or affect many aspects of a data experience design or development. While all tests in Chartability are important, it is worth noting that Chartability's community has contributed to emphasizing the tests marked critical. All data experiences should strive to have 0 critical failures as a minimum while working towards 0 failures overall. Separator. Dimmed. How do you use Chartability?
All right. So far it's talking about audits and testing and nothing I'm interested. Well, this is great stuff. It's just not stuff that I have fun doing. I'm interested in the feedback of like how accessible stuff is or how chartable. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe I'll write that at some point. Chartable. I should probably write Chartability at some point. So let's see how they suggest to use it, and then I'll say how I plan to use it.
Firefox. Voiceover off. Voiceover. How do you use Chartability? Heading Level 2. Permalink. How do you use Chartability? Link. There are a lot of different ways to perform an audit, and so there are also many different ways to use Chartability. Sometimes an audit is as casual as checking your work while you do it, and other times it is a big affair that involves teams of specialists and lawyers. Realistically, while a highly trained auditor may be able to casually evaluate an artifact in as little as 30 minutes or even hold heuristics in mind as they are doing their own creative work, Those new to auditing may take anywhere between 2 and 8 hours to complete a full pass of chartability. Professional audits, which can take weeks or months, often include multiple auditors and provide rigorous documentation and detailed recommendations for remediation, typically in the form of a report. Chartability is meant to serve both quick pass and deep dive styles of audits, so users are expected to leverage it as they see fit. Below we give an example of what might be a fast pass audit, using chartability, in 5 steps. This isn't super thorough, but a good way to quickly check a handful of access barriers quickly. 1.
All right. See how expensive this shit is? Like at the minimum, you're looking at 8 hours, right? So so you can spend all this time auditing and then trying to figure out how to fix it. But if you never broach the literacy problem at the onset, then this shit's just going to keep ballooning in expense. So I think that I'm really interested in finding out
how do you use chartability?
How do you use chartability to design? This workbook document says that it's to test design. And I believe that in between here, there's actually a way to consider the designing. And one of the ways that chartability does that is sort of by bonding perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust concepts. Let me do this is actually a worthwhile doodle to have. Whatever. This drawing's getting kind of chaotic here. I don't really want to use dip inks tonight just because just feeling a little lazy. So let's see. We've got we've got P O. I'm gonna just keep writing this stuff a lot, and they're long words, but again, you write them enough, you remember them, and you build this stuff.
Vertical scroll bar, 39 pages
into your workflow, and then life is cheaper on the aggregate as a designer. Operable, understandable. So we're going to cruise through like a bunch of these. But as we do, I want to fill in, understand, robust. And then we've got compromising. So I'm thinking maybe for the talk, I might actually make like a little art thing that people can get. Some little cards. We'll see. I might be ambitious, flexible, assistive, and then flexible. And then I'm actually going to make this a table. Let's go and just do that real fast. So here's our index. Boom, boom, boom. Okay. So now let's wander through here and
Vision 2, 3, 4, 5, the tests. Perceivable. Heading. Low contrast. Perceivable. Heading level 2.
I want to skip ahead to so there's a table of contents here.
Collapsed. Toolbar. 2.
Go away.
Cap I. Done. Button. Done. Okay. Filter headings. Text 2. Perceivable. Link. Low contrast. Meaningful elements can be distinguished from each other. Link. Page 27 of 30. Page 30 of 30. Page 32 of 39.
Okay.
Compromising. Heading level 2. Filter headings. Text field. Region. Landmark. Filter. Outline. Pop up. The tests. Heading level 2. Low. Critical. Alt. Page 32 of 39. Select to read more. Page 32. Compromising. Heading level 2. Compromising. Heading level. Understandable. Yet robust. Information flows. Address bar. Search. Show tabs. 2. Open tabs. Heading. Homepage. Selected. Forward. Chartability. Reader mode available. Page 3 of 39. Page. Page set. Vertical scroll bar. 7, 0, 0%, 10, 20, 4, 50%, 60%, 70, 80%, 90%, 80%. The design is page 32 of 30. Understandable, yet robust. Information flows must provide transparency, tolerance, and consideration for different ways that users with assistive technologies and disabilities will prefer to consume different information. No table. Critical.
Okay. Compromising is understandable and robust. So when we dig into these rules are making sure that the cognitive flow, the cognitive accessibility, the reading level, the plain text is all understandable, and it's done in a robust way.
Screen dimmed.
That it's going to work on all the devices because we use some standards.
No, state is not assistive. Data density is inappropriate. Assistive. Assistive. Heading level 2. Permalink. Assistive. Link. Understandable and perceivable but labor reducing. Interface must be intelligent and multisensory in a way that
So this is my favorite principle, the way that it's written actually, because it said like, make this thing perceivable. So make sure that every sensory or every dimension of visual, tactile, and audible is addressed. So
screen dimmed.
If you have a visual image and somebody cannot perceive the content, then it lacks the audible dimension. If somebody can't access that region, then it lacks the tactile dimension. And then again, the robustness keeps us tethered in reality, because this is going to, when we do it in a robust way, we make sure that it works across devices. So now we've gone through assistive.
Critical. Page 35 of 39. Perceive. Flexible. Heading level 2. Permalink. Flexible. Link. Perceivable and operable, yet robust. Design must respect user settings from user agents, browsers, operating.
Okay. So now we've got flexible, which is perceivable and operable. Let's let it.
Perceivable and operable, yet robust. Design must respect user settings from user agents, browsers, operating systems, applications, and provide presentation and operation control. User style.
All right. This one is the one where you just got to give up control. Give everybody the flexibility, font, color, filters. Just give it to everybody. Don't have an opinion. If something smells like an opinion, make it a form element. If it's a form element that you don't like, get rid of it. It wasn't a good idea. So that's kind of how I think about these things. So let's say we go and make a change for the sake of flexibility. And we affect how perceivable that thing is. Ultimately, that's going to have an effect on the assistiveness, because the perceivability is tied to it. And assistive needs to be labor reducing. I really think that ultimately our goal, right? Like if a visualization is assistive technology, if these devices are to be assistive technologies, if they're to educate and be literacy tools, everything needs to be labor reducing. So I think that one of the most important things to consider in your design choices is how labor reducing these things are. Sometimes you might find that there's like a lot of tab stops. So one of the ways there's a few different techniques to remove tab stops in standards ways. And I think there are just a handful of configurations that really have the possibility of, there are few configurations, there are finite configurations that
Screen dimmed.
satisfy these
No default build your own provided. Heading level 3.
these principles. So I'm gonna keep listening to it. Like I said, I gotta do the presentation, so it'll help me study some. But I'm gonna start back at the top with back at perceivable, because I actually think, like, for the reason, like, since this is in the context of data visualization, there's some
Select page 30, page 20, page 27 of 39. 29%, 30, 49, 59, 69%. All permalink. Spacing not meaning color critical vision critic small critic critic low perceive the tests perceivable heading level 2 permalink perceivable link user must be able to easily identify content using their senses sight sound and touch low contrast heading level 3 critical heading level 3 permalink low contrast critical link select to read more button collapsed content is only visual critical permalink content is only visual critical link select to read more button collapsed small text size critical permalink small text size critical link select to read more button collapsed visual present seizure risk critical permalink visual present seizure risk critical link select to read more button collapsed color is used alone to communicate meaning heading level 3 permalink color is used alone to communicate meaning link select to read more button collapsed meaningful elements can be distinguished from each other heading level 3 permalink meaningful elements can be distinguished from each other link select to read more button collapsed not CVD friendly heading level 3 permalink not CVD friendly link select to read more button collapsed spacing is inappropriate heading level 3 permalink heading level 3 page 26 of 39 content is only visual main content is only screen dimmed content is only select to read more information in the chart must be available without visuals no screen reader / braille support at a minimum test using JAWS plus Chrome NVDA plus Firefox on Windows VoiceOver plus Safari on Mac and VoiceOver plus Safari on iOS. These devices must be able to access all chart information, all annotations, visually apparent trends or features, and all major narrative elements must be exposed to screen readers. Videos, presentations, and animations must include synchronized audio descriptions. Good example. Page 28 of operable, operable, heading level 2, permalink, operable, link. All controls must be error tolerant, discoverable, and multimodal, not just mouse operable, but using keyboard, etc. Interaction modality only has one input type, critical, permalink. Interaction modality only has one input type, critical, link. Select to read more, button, collapsed. No interaction cues or instructions, heading level 3, critical, heading level 3, Permalink. No interaction cues or instructions. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Controls overridden controls. Critical. Permalink. Controls overridden controls. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Low contrast on interactive elements. Heading level 3. Permalink. Low contrast on interactive elements. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Keyboard focus indicator missing. Obscured. Or low contrast. Heading level 3. Permalink. Keyboard focus indicator missing. Voiceover. A guide to designing accessible. WCAG conformant focus indicators. Heading level 1. Main. Page 2 of 74. Page 3 of 74. Page 4 of page 3 of 74. Page 4 of page 3 of 74. A universal focus indicator. In page a universal focus indicator. Heading level 2. Focus. We'll talk page 69, page 7, page 70, page 2 of 3. Voiceover off.
Fuck. My mic has been off for a little bit. I don't even know when my mic started to go off. Um, Amazing. Anyway, cool. I don't know how to get back to what I was doing here. Where I don't remember where I blipped out at. Let's see, what was I even? So it's just drawing some stuff and like really mushing my hand on there. That was, oh yeah, we were talking about focus indicators, making things operable. Yeah. I think the thing that's in, again, I keep reiterating is like how much this stuff costs because of non-literacy in the beginning. Like these are not fun things to learn after the fact. And that's the shit thing about accessibility is it usually comes after the fact. And when you do that left shift thing, and not like the way, not like in the business sense, whatever, your managers are making up, but like real ass left shift design puts accessibility and trauma informed design all the way on the fucking left. Because if you do this stuff in the beginning, you're thinking about security, you're thinking about access, and you're thinking about compliance, and all of that stuff's like cooked into your fundamentals of your product. I really think like this stuff's dry, but there's so much value to it because it's not going to change too much. I don't know how much I'm going to put in about operable, but I really think that the operability of the screen reader on mobile has been super nice from a streaming perspective. This is kind of, again, too, like, it's really nice to be able, like, since I struggle to find folks to talk to and stuff, it's nice to be able to have this, I don't know, kind of listen, and then have some reason to respond, I guess. Never mind. I don't want to get depressed talking about this part, but close. Okay. I can't quite figure out how to get the gain back. That's super annoying. Anyway, Let's see. Operable. Understandable. Let's go that one.
Voiceover on. Fire. Activity. The chartability work. Vertical. 38%. 48%. 58%. 68%. 78%. Changes are not easy to follow. Page 26 of 34. Understandable. Heading. Understandable. Heading level 2. Permalink. Understandable. Link. Any information or data are presented without ambiguity, with clarity, and in a way that minimizes cognitive load. No explanation for purpose or for how to read. Critical. Permalink. No explanation for purpose or for how to read. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. No title, summary, or caption. Critical. Permalink. No title, summary, or caption. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Reading level inappropriate. Critical. Permalink. Reading level inappropriate. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Interactive context is not clear. Heading level 3. Permalink. Interactive context is not clear. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Information complexity is inappropriate. Heading level 3. Permalink. Information complexity is inappropriate. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Changes are not easy to follow. Heading level 3. Permalink. Changes are not easy to follow. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Metrics and variables are undefined. Heading level 3. Permalink. Metrics and variables are undefined. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Statistical uncertainty isn't clearly communicated. Heading level 3. Permalink. Statistical uncertainty isn't clearly communicated. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Axis labels are unclear or missing. Heading level 3. Permalink. Axis labels are unclear or missing. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Controls are inappropriate. Heading level 3. Permalink. Controls are inappropriate. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Robust. Heading level 2. Permalink. Robust. Link. The design is compliant with existing standards and works with the user's compliant, assistive technologies of choice. Does not conform to standards. Heading level 3. Permalink. Does not conform to standards. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Semantically invalid. Heading level 3. The design is compliant with existing standards and works with the user's compliant, assistive technologies of choice. The design is compliant with existing standards and works with the user's compliant, assistive technologies of choice. Does not
okay. So
robust. Select to permalink. Controls are inappropriate. Link.
When I talk about understand, so like some of these things, it's crazy. Like, so, God, to communicate uncertainty. What epistemic or aleatoric or whatever the hell they are. There's like, God, the layers of literacy that are required. Like, take a whole I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of convinced that chartability takes like a whole team of people. So not only are you talking about like 8 hours of what you're talking 8 hours of multiple people. I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying like this shit's super expensive. Koja making the yeah. So there are some working documents about making things accessible for people with cognitive and learning disabilities. And then the other thing that I really love so much is I think it's called accessible numbers. And this one's really good. I mean, and it's super pertinent to the data visualization. It's probably in. I'm willing. How do I make a bet with myself that Frank already got this in there? Let's see. Chartability here, and then let's do a search for accessible numbers. Oh, well, maybe I have to make a pull request then. But no, that's a good, or as a reference or something. But that's a good document to bring into this. Killer. We're making it pretty far. We have gotten to understand. Now we're on robust. On robust, I want to show where the W3C validator is. Axe is probably another one because it does. But Marcy will have already talked about that. So I'll just make sure to like assume that that's gonna. I'm going to assume that that will have been talked about.
Voiceover on. 5. Vertical scroll. 10%, 20, 40%, 50%, 60%, 70%, 80%. The design is compliant, does not conform to standards. Heading, compromising. Heading left. The design is compliant with existing standards and works with the user's compliant. Assistive technologies of choice. Does not conform to standards. Heading level 3. Permalink. Does not conform to standards. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Semantically invalid. Heading level 3. Permalink. Semantically invalid. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Fragile techno. Select to read more. But. This heuristic is synthesized from standards. Description. Semantically invalid use of document elements, if it functions like a button, but it is semantically other than a button, etc. Chart must be semantically valid according to modern standards. Initial testing, on the web, may be automated using any combination of Xcore, Wave, HTML codesniffer, accessibility insights, or W3C markup validation, but may only pass once a screen reader test has also verified the experience. See perceivable failures for screen reader info. Example tools or testing method. https://www.deek.com/ax/devtools/. Link. Heading level. Fragile technology support. Heading level. Compromising. Heading level. Compromising. Heading level 2. Permalink. Compromising. Link. Understandable, yet robust. Information flows must provide transparency, tolerance, and consideration for different ways that users with assistive technologies and disabilities will prefer to consume different information. No table. Critical. Permalink. No table. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button.
That one's the escape hatch. That one's the one that says, oh, maybe tables should be considered for visualization. And remember, critical means that it will be costly to fix on the back end. So to go and provide a table after the fact is costly. And you've done so much compression of all of this work into a low signal visual channel, and you've actually like missed the really important information that you've generated along the way. The table is fucking king.
Screen dimmed.
It's really the cash money of the web. And the other thing that I love about it from like a screen reader design perspective is it's like one of the most complicated interactions that you can have with the screen reader. So it actually allows for some of the most free-flowing exploration that a screen reader user might have. Yeah, give me some focus. There we go. Great.
Permalink. No table. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Information can only be reached through single process. Heading level 3. Permalink. Information can only be reached through single process. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Location and history is unclear. Heading level 3. Permalink. Location and history is unclear. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Interactions are not forgivable. Heading level 3. Permalink. Interactions are not forgivable. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Information cannot be navigated according to narrative or structure. Heading level 3. Permalink. Information cannot be navigated according to narrative or structure. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Table/data is static. Heading level 3. Permalink. Table/data is static. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. State is not easy to share and reproduce. Heading level 3. Permalink. State is not easy to share and reproduce. Link. Select to read more.
Table
Button.
fixes that
Collapsed.
shit.
Assistive. Heading level 2. Permalink. Assistive. Link. Understandable and perceivable but labor reducing. Interface must be intelligent and multisensory in a way that reduces the cognitive and functional labor required for use. Data density is inappropriate. Heading level 3. Critical. Heading level 3. Permalink. Data density is inappropriate. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Navigation and interaction is tedious. Critical. Permalink. Navigation and interaction is tedious. Critical. Link. Select
Skip
to read
links
more.
on long
Button.
tables.
Collapsed. Visually apparent features and relationships are not described. Heading level 3. Permalink. Visually apparent features and relationships are not described. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Data in text is not human readable. Heading level 3. Permalink. Data in text is not human readable. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Space does not handle extremes. Heading level 3. Permalink. Space does not handle extremes. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. No default, build your own provided. Heading level 3. Permalink. No default, build your own provided. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Flexible. Heading level 2. Permalink. Flexible. Link. Perceivable and operable. Yet robust. Design must respect user settings from user agents, browsers, operating systems, applications, and provide presentation and operation control. User style change not respected. Critical. Permalink. User style change not respected. Critical. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Long animations cannot be controlled. Heading level 3. Permalink. Long animations cannot be controlled. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Scrolling experiences cannot be altered. Heading level 3. Permalink. Scrolling experiences cannot be altered. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Zoom and reflow are not supported. Heading level 3. Permalink. Zoom and reflow are not supported. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Users text adjustments are not respected. Heading level 3. Permalink. Users text adjustments are not respected. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Design is not consistent and familiar. Heading level 3. Permalink. Design is not consistent and familiar. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Contrast and textures cannot be adjusted. Heading level 3. Permalink. Contrast and textures cannot be adjusted. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Difficult chart type has no alternative. Heading level 3. Permalink. Difficult chart type has no alternative. Link. Select to read more. Button. Collapsed. Releases. Heading level 2. Link. No releases published. Packages. Heading level 2. Link. No packages published. Contributors for. Heading level 2. Link. At Frank Kalapsky. Link. Image. Frank Kalapsky. Frank Kalapsky. Link. At Frank. At. No. Pack. No releases. Heading. Select to read more. Permalink. Difficult chart type.
Great. Made it through. So I got 7 minutes to talk about this and pull out some things. But towards the end of that, I just felt like this document has a lot of respect for both the users and the builders of this technology.
Screen dimmed.
Web content accessibility guidelines are like, go fish yourself. But this is more about it's not about respecting compliance, but it's about respecting your users. I think that that's the thing that's like really distinct in this is it seems like these rules provide dignity and uphold respect for your users if you do it right. The challenge is that everybody has to be on board with respecting the users. And that's a hard cultural thing to do. It's a hard... Care is a very difficult thing to scale. I really love these principles. But I only think that they work. So I don't actually think that the POUR principles alone, the perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust principles, I don't think that they like really work independently for anyone, except for compliance organizations, and that's fine. ACT serves or DQ serves different people. The W3C serves different people. Scientists serve different people. So it's really hard to know. But like, I really find this to be like a unifying approach to like respecting your user, all your users. It's important to kind of think about when you're adding features and considering features and advocating for features, you know, often we want to advocate for who this includes, but at the same time, too, those choices often determine who we exclude. And I think that these principles or some study or education around these principles has the potential to make people more thoughtful in their design. I don't know. Accessibility doesn't work if you have to retrofit it. That's the overall theme all the time. Is accessibility is just super duper duper expensive to retrofit. That's why it's a business. The sad thing now is that accessibility, AI and accessibility is now, I mean, a lot of with the AI rise, there's who does accessible AI serve, and it often serves the people who are buying the product, and not so much the users anymore. It's a feel good drug. So it's big business. It's a much bigger business to sell software and not scale caring than it is to do consulting, is I kind of feel like what we've learned in this accessibility space. So resources and accessibility are getting increasingly limited. And if we keep fucking around and wasting time and spending all this extra money on non-literacy, then we'll never get there. And everybody says, hey, we'll just teach people younger. We'll teach people younger. How, where, and how? Like, what's the curriculum for it? It's not there right now. The resources that are there, it's too hard. Accessibility is too hard. Accessibility is not accessible. And I really feel like it needs to be so that the accessibility community is represented by the people that are affected. I don't know. The best I can do is just keep advocating and exposing people to things. I think my position helps that. I really think that everybody. I mean, it's that cheesy concept that everybody's disabled at some point. Or there's a quote. Oh boy, I don't know if I'm trying to recall what it was. I I would I want to look it up so I remember it. Because this fumbling around usually makes me remember these things. The abled and disabled are the same people at different times. So I think about that. I only have one good eye now. And you it makes you think. Sometimes I feel like I enjoy the sensory experimentation of assistive technology, but sometimes I feel like I'm playing with fire. However, I think one of the things that helped me, or one, it's hard to get. I think I made a lot of false starts with the screen reader. Like the goal for folks who are trying to be allies isn't to be a screen reader user like a daily screen reader user. It's to understand the perceivability of the work. I'm not gonna rock a screen reader as fast as somebody who uses it on the daily. I'm here to make sure that things are compromising, that they're understandable, and they're robust. And one of the ways I check that is by listening to it. Listen. Okay, so I think I have two suggestions for learning how to use a screen reader. One of them is just using it for a few minutes at a time on a walk on your mobile device. It's a good way to figure out how to browse the news or learn how to, or yeah, just something along those lines. You might be listening to podcasts. At the same time, too, you might be able to learn just to navigate a little bit. And becoming familiar with these things might let you, test on a mobile device in a couple months. But these things are are in your pocket. So not knowing how to use them if you are curious about accessibility, it's a tough hurdle to overcome. But once you do, I think it can help garner that respect for the user that sort of comes through in these chartability principles. So there's the screen reader. And it's one of the things that's also interesting is like people think about the audible aspect of the screen reader, but one of the on the perceivability side of things, on the perceivability side of things, or operability side of things, when you turn on the screen reader, especially on a desktop and on mobile, both of them, your keyboard interactions change and your touch interactions change. It's actually a much richer screen reader users interact with their mobile devices in much richer ways than non-screen reader users do. The gestures are really natural, but the one thing that surprised me the most in the transition was just like how physically expressive it is to use the screen reader. And I think like on this stream, one of the things I found was that the mobile screen reader was actually easier to do than the desktop screen reader with the Stream Deck. I don't know why I'm cutting these out, but we're running out of time here. Hey there, what's happening? How's it going? Thanks for joining. But yeah, no, I've been talking for quite a bit of time here, trying to wrap up this last piece so I can get another notebook out the door and do another one of these in the future. So we've got the compromising thing, which is just saying that our documents with data in them and code in them, they should be understandable and they should be standards compliant. People hate the standards. It's super unfun, but like once you learn how to wield them, you can make a lot of cool stuff. And then the next thing that we're going to try and impress upon folks is that there is a relationship between all of the sensory dimensions and how understandable it is. So if your document lacks the audible dimension or your figures are lacking alt text, then it's not understandable to people with all needs. The last thing is that these designs need to be perceivable and operable. So that means that all the sensory dimensions on all the devices. It's a really big ask, which is why I really feel like there's a set of fundamentals hidden in these rules, which is why I keep working on them. They helped me once I could see beyond the testing aspect, and I could see that these were actually like, it's almost like these are like Jeopardy answers, and I'm trying to look for, is this thing chartable? I think, I still wanted to write chartable. I think that's what we're going to do. We're going to write chartable, and that's going to kind of, I don't know how all this stuff's going to connect here, but we're about to find out. I don't have any glue either, but we'll, got compromising, we've got assistive, we've got flexible, we've got our diagram here. I feel like we should cut up our diagram also. So I don't know. It's it's interesting because you draw and you program in notebooks, and then you draw in notebooks, and at the end of the day, like this like cell structure of notebooks is so natural, where it's like, oh yeah, it totally makes sense just to cut these things out as sort of individual units. Yeah, they're not on a grid, but it's really clear that the perceivable, operable, and understandable is related. There is, and this is showing us the connection between the two. So that's where I think it'll be fun to sort of see our collage all come together. I just don't know how we're going to put it together. I hope I got X-Acto knife, or I got a little blade here, so we'll be able to do it. I want to keep some of these lines in here. They're sort of fun. And also, if I leave some lines, I can do some zigzaggery. So it's funny. I keep these like I thought that I would be doing more programming on this one, but I really just get into the feel of drawing. And this paper is watercolor paper, so it's got these like little dimples. I don't know. I think like some people who do calligraphy might not like the fact that you're not laying down a fat, clean line. But for me, I almost like want this to actually like fold. No, it's got a good feel to it there. So we've got our compromising, we've got our assistive. How are they all gonna? How do they all play together? This one's all. Okay. So here's what we're gonna need. We're gonna need a blank sheet of paper, I believe. And perhaps some work from last time. Or maybe I have a fun idea. I've never tried this actually. Yeah, let's go. All right. So what I think I want to do is I want to kind of show that like perceivable, operable, and understandable, and oh no, that's our frame. I got it. We got this. So this is going to be our frame. All of these things here, and it kind of sucks because like some of the stuff's intertwined, but whatever. It just sort of I don't know. It's like graffiti that's like left over after they knock down a stairwell. It's like, how'd that shit get on the wall? And then you have to like think about like the history of the building. It's like, oh, there were stairs at some point and they just never buffed that. So let's see. This is gonna be a great frame. I'm gonna do some like big gross cuts. I don't know, what is this? This is just like calligraphy jazz. At some point I'm actually gonna program. I know how to do that. It's just I do that for my day job now, and I don't like actually have fun. I gotta get better at keeping myself in the frame here, especially when I'm doing these things. Also, it would be fun to probably put the mic up on this stuff too. All right, so there's understandable. We got operable. We got perceivable. So I think understandable and perceivable are probably like our biggest words here. So my plan. I don't know if this is gonna work. I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I guess to say the plan and then not have it work. I'm just gonna try. I don't have. I'm trying to think. Do I have any paint? I don't have any paint. I've got some ink. See if we can do something with some ink. All right. So perceivable and understandable. I kind of think they go this way. And then operable and then robust. Okay. This is lovely. I like this layering here. It's a good texture. I actually think that this is going to work better. all black. That's, wow. What? Huh? Who knew? All right. So we get finite area to work with here. It's a good black. I've got some Sharpies that are metallic that should work on this. All right, so we said that it's perceivable, understandable, operable, and then robust. Okay. Robust kind of ruins like the whole ubble flow. It makes it like typographically like difficult to play around with the tenses of the words, and I'm like, I don't even know what a, yeah. I have so many questions. I just didn't want to look for any more answers. That's how accessibility is. I don't know. So many answers, but what are the questions? It's actually like one of the hardest things about designing accessible stuff. It's like, what are the right questions to ask? And I think that there's sort of like, there's probably like a healthy progression of these chartability principles where you could like you probably like learn the document structure first. Work on that. Then you work on some like tab nav, throw in the screen reader into the mix. I think that there's some interesting things to, perceivable, operable, understandable, robust. So let's go through this. So really like this little visual bit here. So let's keep chipping away at this guy. See, I don't know. I guess I think I learn a different way, or I don't know. I don't know if I learn a different way, or I'm very focused on learning. But the amount of thought that I get in thinking about the work as I cut around it, as I draw on it, as I just like play with it. It's really interesting perspective here. So I think really I'm starting to feel okay. So I think that goes on top there. Perceivable. We gotta clean up the bottom here. Okay. Labor reducing. Okay. All right. 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 I cannot think of anything to start necessarily gluing with unless nope. 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 Okay. So anyway, we will put this, I will get some glue and get this together. So now so it's perceivable, it's operable, something to this effect here. And this will be nice because when I go and look at this again, I'll have this configuration here. So now what did we say? We said that compromising is understandable and robust. So that means that this is compromising here. And then assistive is perceivable and understandable. So this kind of cuts right across here. It's great. And then our last guy is flexible, which is perceivable and operable. And it's cool. There's kind of there's a shape to this. Yeah, I think we can make something out of this eventually. Actually, maybe it looks something more like perceivable, operable. And then, oh, no, you know what? I actually did not show a work. I'm gonna. Yeah, this is actually a good time to pull in a piece of work as I. Yeah, great. Okay. Programming. Okay. Let's see. That's programming, and then it's also got that. So we're gonna go over here, and then I'm gonna fade over, and we are going to look at diagram draft. Nope. Tony Fast. Okay. Site navigation. Uh, graph. Graph is what it's called. Graph. So like I said, I've been thinking about these problems for quite some time. This is actually a graph notation for the POUR CAF principles. And what I wanted to do was experiment with different layouts of these things, but from chartability perspective, which is if there's no table, there's a critical failure. So I was wondering, how do I go from the table? So what we did was I loaded in the README file, and then I plucked out the headings, and now I have a data frame with a bunch of things. And then I passed that through a network analysis tool that gives me like multiple layouts. And this is going to let me put a table on the page and put all of the values of these embeddings or like the layout of the graph into CSS and effectively use CSS to do network diagrams. So this here is actually, this abomination is actually a table. The indexes are the edges of the graph. And I'm fairly certain that this is the basis for an accessible graph is to have the edges on the index. And then your Y values, your node values can typically be whatever. It could be a description. What I've got here is the X and Y values for the beginning and the end of every point laid out. And what that lets me do is every row has values to X and Y. And then when I start changing the values, the CSS animations move the points, and I get all these different layouts. So it's cool. So we are drawing. Okay, so I want to do programming with the iPhone. No, programming with the keyboard. Nice. So now if I go over here, in some way or another, let's find a layout that we like. Well, actually, this layout has extra edge on it that doesn't exist in the ones that we've made today. Let's see. What's a good one here? No, actually, we'll just keep going the way we are. We have our little graph, right? We have our little cheat sheet here. So we know. So now let's find the next one. So we've got flexible is perceivable and operable. So then assistive. Where'd you go? Assistive. Assistive goes from perceivable to understandable. And then compromising goes from understandable to robust. Does this connect to any? So this just tails off like this? Is that all that happens? Is that really what's going to happen? I guess so. So that's kind of interesting. When you lay it out, the operability Okay, no, this is interesting. I've never really seen this layout of stuff before, so let's do it this way. Perceivable, operable. And then, so operable only has one, and robust only has one. So, no, okay. So, flexible. This is what I would be doing anyway. I often do like post-it notes or index cards. Okay, so perceivable, it goes to flexible, and it also goes to assistive. And then assistive goes to understandable. So I didn't add the robust connection because, like, I think flexible says perceivable and operable yet robust, but I don't know how much. I think the robust thing is just implicit in compromising. So then you get compromising, and then you get robust. And this makes a lot of sense. Okay. So I guess like the way I'm kind of seeing this sort of happen here, and you know when you do these things, you kind of like really keep changing the orientations because it's like how the words interact with each other. Flexible. I should know these at this point, but getting a little okay. So perceivable. That this is assistive. Understandable, compromising, and robust. All right, let's peel back these layers. Standards. Make your choices based on standards. Make compromises based on standards. Make things understandable based on standards. And when you choose a mode of presentation, make sure that it's compromising and robust. Are the choices, the cognitive choices, labor reducing? These are all the axes that we can design on. There's only a certain set of degrees of freedom that can be made flexible. Too much flexibility is going to affect operability, and not enough operability is going to mean lesser flexibility. So, I really, yeah, I think that so the configuration that's in this document here that we're showing is based on having a robust check on flexible, which makes them extra edges and actually kind of like makes this thing loop. But from like this perspective here, there's something, I don't know, it almost feels like sinews, like a sign or something where it's like, oh, then up here, yeah, yeah, this is nice. This is nice. It's almost like at the top we have quantities, and down here we have qualities of the experience. So yeah, some of these things can be measured and some things can't. That's why we have heuristics for it. But for me, it's fun to be able to play around with these words and these different configurations of the words here. And I actually think that like our collage is actually looking like a collage now. Like even just like almost layered like this, except I have some ideas. Let's do this. I'm excited. I'm so happy. We're gonna have a piece at the end of this, I hope. I really want to like end these things with making a piece. So I don't know if this is definitely not gonna this is gonna work for the sake of this. Oh no, all my pages, you know what? All the pages in my notebook like stick together. Um when I've got ink on them. So I think that this might actually work as like a temporary adhesive. So I can get very carried away with this. But what I really want to do is I want to make some stars. I don't know why. I just feel quite compelled to make some stars. I don't think we're not messing with a screen reader anymore. So let's fade over. Okay, so we got some ink down. So let's make some stars. Oh God, never mind. We're just gonna make drips. It turns out we're just gonna make a mess. But we're almost making a plot, right? Now it's like a 3D plot. This is sort of like that diagram that we have of the perceivable, operable. This is why my desk looks the way that it does too. But it's interesting, you know. We were talking about data ink, but you can really work this stuff for a while. It takes a while for it to dry. Okay, so now that everything is sufficiently inked up, let's get, and we're actually in a place where we're super excited if we're getting extra ink on things, because this is turning into an absolute mess of a project. So let's fucking do it. Fine. Okay. Something like this. It's great. Yeah, no, that's gonna stick. And then I probably should have like been more thoughtful. Oh wow, that looks cool. Oh, you know what? Let's do this now. Yeah, now we'll have like a really nice texture on our background. And then we won't feel so bad about like trying to find the right place for it either. Uh-oh. Looks like I used up all the good ink though. Go on. Oh, okay. I don't know what that is. Part of my reason for doing this stream is just so I can have the recording for later. I'm not really ever expecting anybody to show up to my personal little art messes. But we're just going to keep using ink as glue today. Nice, nice, nice. Good bubbles. All right. And let's see. Operable lived up here, right? So let's get that down. I can't believe I'm doing this. This is ridiculous. Such a mess. Nice. Nice. I love this. All right. Operable. Flexible. Is that next? Operable. Flexible. Okay, cool. More ink glue. Okay. I'm really excited to have like some like leftover ink to fuck with. It's gonna be cool. Perceivable, flexible. God, these are just my notes. This is just how like even if this was not recorded, this would just be what notes look like. Assistive. Ink glue. Assistive. Understandable. Nice. Compromising. Yeah. And then robust. So like that's our goal. Well, actually, it's our baseline. Robust is our baseline. Like robust is like read the standards, read the instruction manual, and you'll be good. This is great. I love this. We've got it needs to be operable. You need to be able to touch it. You need to be able to open it. You need to be able to type it. It needs to be perceivable. So all of the sensory dimensions need to be there. It needs to be assistive. Let's see what's a dry brush gonna get me right now. Oh no, that's no good. Come back. Come back, ink glue. Do your job as ink glue. I will glue this up before I finish this off. So it's labor reducing. It's cognitively accessible. Numbers, reading level, all that shit. And then it's robust and it follows standards. And flexible, assistive, and compromising are the glue between all of them. And I think that that's the sort of story of the talk this week is this. It's this. It's not this. It's not what we had over here. This is too. This isn't correct. I really don't like. I don't think like I don't know. At least like from a formal visual aesthetic, this doesn't seem as I'm much happier with a line. And I really like the idea of like if you start from things being robust with the goal of things being operable, this is how you fill in the stuff in the middle. And when you're stuck with a hard decision qualitatively, you say, hey, is this a labor reducing thing to have done? I'm pretty happy we got there. Um, this is the This is really the visual story I think I've been looking for. It's this, and then it's this linear thing. It's how these connect, but maybe there's a better way to lay out. So if you did OPUR, it might be a better layout than we have to break up the POUR CAF convention at least. But I think rearranging these letters here might go and make for a better mnemonic device for somebody to kind of remember these things. So, yeah, another stream down.